Good morning. It is Tuesday, August 4th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, in the strongest action ever taken in the United States to combat climate change, President Barack Obama unveils a set of environmental regulations devised to ultimately transform America's electricity industry. Accusations of widespread doping by top-level athletes is the latest scandal to rock the sporting world. And later on the show, film students from around the world land in Jerusalem to learn how to make movies with global resonance on a shoestring budget. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin today in the United States, where President Barack Obama unveiled what is his administration's and has been described as the most ambitious effort ever to battle climate change. In a special address, Obama challenged his country and the world to step up efforts to fight global warming, unveiling a wrapped-up plan to cut carbon emissions from U.S. power plants. Now, declaring climate change the greatest threat facing the world, the American president said the regulations will require the power sector to cut its emissions by 32% from 2005 levels by 2030, and that would reduce Americans' energy bills and improve the health of vulnerable populations nationwide. Obama chose to enact the plan by executive order, bypassing Congress, which rejected legislative attempts to reduce pollution. The new regulations are certain to face legal challenges from states and industries opposed to such strong measures. Let's take a look at the following report about this groundbreaking initiative by the American president and break it down after that.
In what might prove to be another defining moment in his final term in office, U.S. President Barack Obama unveiled Monday a comprehensive plan to tackle climate change.
We're the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. Existing power plants can still dump unlimited amounts of harmful carbon pollution into the air. For the sake of our kids and the health and safety of all Americans, that has to change. For the sake of the planet, that has to change.
Among the plan's focal points are substantial cuts in carbon emissions, with the aim of reaching 32% by 2030. Greenhouse gas emissions from U.S. power stations will be then cut to nearly one-third. Obama's initiative comes as France is preparing to host the UN Climate Change Conference in December. Expectations are high as organizers seek to finalize a broad universal agreement on climate change for the first time in over 20 years of UN talks.
I think in December, as in 1789, when the French Revolution sparked huge hopes for many in the world, history will be written in Paris, this time for the future of the planet.
Global warming remains perhaps the one cause which nations worldwide can unite on and even solve.
Joined in studio by our resident environmentalist, so to speak, Netta Achitov, environmentalist journalist for Haaretz. Netta, good morning to you. Good morning. Explain the initiative to me, because what it spells to me mostly is that companies in the United States are going to get very angry because they're going to lose money.
Everybody's going to get very angry. Okay. Already, 25 states declared that they're going to, go to court with this thing. 5 governors are already working on their lawsuit against Mr. Obama.
One of many, yes.
Yes. I think the industry that is going to change the most is the electricity industry, and he's really turning it upside down.
And because you understand these initiatives, and I was trying to listen to the American president yesterday and figure out what it means that really will happen with this initiative. Yeah. How will that be done? The cutting of emissions. How does it translate?
So it's very easy. Yes. Less coal, and then more gas, and then the third stage will be renewable energy. I think this is this is what he's aiming for. And this is, people say it's even bigger than the Obamacare. It's unbelievable what he's doing there. It's like total revolution, and he's into it with full power. He's going to get it.
He's basically declared climate change one of the biggest dangers. Yes. Right? He's making it an agenda. Okay.
And also, I like his I like his attitude, because he's saying, you know, I'm not going to wait for the other countries in Paris in December. You know, there is going to be the biggest summit in the world about climate change. I'm just going to do it by myself, and everybody will follow. He's really the leader of the world in these terms, you know, in the environmental. And also he has an agreement with China, with President Xi. They were agreeing that both countries will reduce emissions by 30% by 2030, and he's actually going for it. So now we have to see and watch how is China going to react. How
China is going to react to that, most likely. Now, when it comes to the United States doing something like that, have we seen precedent? Other countries already moving in that direction?
This is the biggest step ever, but France is also reducing. Germany is also in the front of reducing emissions, but this is really big. And in the States, it's special because you have the federal and then the states. And he's letting actually the states choose their own path. He's just setting the goals. Right. So you have to reach, if you're a state, you have to reach certain goals, but you can do it on your own path. And he's going to give like bonuses and money, and he's going to reward states that will be early adopters, that will do it.
So it's kind of an incentive to move in that way. We're also joined on the phone from Washington, D.C., I believe, by Times of Israel diplomatic correspondent Rebecca Shimoni-Storley. Rebecca, good morning to you. A very, very groundbreaking initiative, as we were, as Neta Achitov, our environmentalist journalist, explained to us. But in terms of the reaction, let's start by the reactions, first of all, in the United States, because this is something that's ruffling a lot of feathers, isn't it?
Well, of course, climate change has proven to be a very contentious issue in domestic politics in the United States, and it's likely, very likely, to continue to come up as an election issue in 2016. So it's impossible to divorce the announcement that was made today from what we may see coming up in terms of election rhetoric by the Democrats, who want to present themselves as being compassionate but environmentally conscious, versus the Republicans who say that this exact kind of initiative actually threatens American jobs and American industry.
And American industry, because money will be lost by those companies. But the president has already somewhat promised to veto and do this, or well, not vetoes, pardon me, but do this by executive order. So first question to you is, when it comes to climate change, he just put it on the table. Are we going to see this become also one of the elections issues now because of this new initiative? Is this something that we're going to be hearing Republicans and Democrats battling on, almost like the Iran deal?
Oh, my goodness, yes, and in some ways more so, because the Iran deal almost comes to esoteric questions of foreign policy, and traditionally American voters in presidential elections rarely vote on foreign policy alone, whereas this can be interpreted as a question of the economy and of jobs, and that is a big election issue, particularly when it comes to states that are swing states, states like West Virginia, which is heavily, heavily invested in the coal industry, and where there are Democrats like Joe Manchin who are very threatened by this kind of presidential action. And on top of that, there already are complaints made by Republicans against Obama that he likes using executive orders in a way that they complain kind of pushes Congress aside, and this will just be more kind of fodder for that fire, that idea that what Obama can't get done through Congress, he'll get done through executive orders.
Through executive orders, which seems to be his modus operandi. One can only ask, is a choice ever really given to him to do things otherwise? Rebecca, stay with us, though, because Neta, I'm asking you, is there any understanding of how much money will be lost, as Rebecca just mentioned, by certain industries? I mean, he's looking to... does this initiative kind of kill coal?
So he's giving, obviously he's giving his numbers, and they're good numbers. He declares that families will actually save $85 a year on electricity, and the state will save, I don't remember the numbers, but it was like billions of dollars for health, because there will be less pollution, so less health problems. Now I can assume that his, the people who don't like it, the criticism, are actually gathering money, their own sums, and going to check out how many jobs will be lost, how much money the industry will lose. But in the long term, I think it will save money to the United States. And also the election issue, he himself hinted that it will need another president after him to continue this, this initiative in order for it to work for the next generation.
So Rebecca, essentially, he made this an election issue. He put it on the table in that respect, which to me is always fascinating, because it's not something that we heard from Obama when he was running to be president. In terms of, Rebecca, quickly though, in terms of the actions that can be done to try to stop this initiative, what will the battle look like at this point in the months, I think is it 17 months that are left in his presidency?
Well, so far we've already heard threats that this is going to be challenged rather than through legislative means, because there may be no chance to challenge this through legislative means or limited chances, that this will be challenged through legal means. And that's been lately one of the preferred modus operandi of Obama's opponents, is what they don't like and can't overturn legislatively. And a great example of that is, of course, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is instead tied up and has been tied up in court challenges that have actually called into question whether aspects of the Affordable Care Act, which was, of course, passed through Congress, can be upheld by the Supreme Court. And so it's most likely that one of the fields where we'll see this played out over time is in the judicial field. And, of course, another place where we will see this played out exhaustively is among lobbyists on Capitol Hill, because Obama is going up against industries with a heck of a lot of money. And, of course, at the top of that are the petroleum-based energy industries. And they're going to put up quite a fight.
Oh yeah, and then that leads me to Netta, actually, with a fight as such, because this is about money for those companies. It's about a lot of money. Do we think that this is something that can sustain itself without Obama staying as president, without another president, you know, pulling the same kind of power to try and maintain this initiative?
I think he gained security with the Obamacare. He saw that he can fight, you know, big money and big companies, and he said, okay, I was successful here, so I will be successful there. And also here, what his team did before declaring the initiative, they went to each company in the United States, like big companies, and asked them to join them with the, you know, to the initiative to reduce by themselves their carbon emissions. And 13 biggest companies of the United States actually joined. Bank of America, Apple, Walmart, like really big and known companies. Yeah, they're actually joining the team. They're in it.
Industries will not be affected by this initiative.
Yeah, true. It's not the electricity.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. But they're joining. So he has some support from the business sector, and of course support from Democratic governors that are going with him.
They're going for that. And Rebecca, finally, just because clearly I did not read enough news leading up to this, any reaction from candidates on the Democratic part? Has Hillary endorsed this initiative, or have we heard anything from them?
Well, the Democrats in general are open toward recognizing, and this has been a big issue already, the idea that the Republicans are the party that rejects climate change as a concept. And this has actually been a big speaking point so far for Democrats, and I will imagine it will continue to be a big speaking point for Democrats to kind of label the Republicans as a party that is somehow opposed to scientific evidence, that the rejection of climate change as a concept shows something deeper about kind of the way that the Republican Party faces problems. And so I cannot imagine that this will not continue to be a major issue that the Democrats do take up. And they are, you know, fairly well supported by polls of Democrats. Democrats do widely recognize climate change as a factor.
As opposed to the other guys. Rebecca, I want to thank you for joining us from San Francisco in the United States this morning. Netta Achitov, wonderful to have you with us. A huge initiative, as you said, if anything, another ding for the legacy of President Obama. Thank you as we move along. Speaking of legacies, or the American president legacies, we're going to move on to Obama's other major project when it comes to having his name remembered, the controversial nuclear deal signed last month between world powers and Iran. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Qatar yesterday, where he met with foreign ministers of the 6 energy exporting countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council to try and calm fears that the agreement would strengthen Tehran, or in other words, he's on the selling trip. But while Kerry was in Doha, other administration officials are doing their best to shore up support for the deal in Congress. Democrats now feel they have enough votes on their side to ensure the deal passes its review, or if not upon the first vote, when it comes for a revote after the president issues a veto, as he promised he would do. Let's take a look at the following report about Kerry's trip to Doha and break it down from there.
The U.S. quest to reassure its allies over the Iran nuclear deal continues, with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry reaching the next and highly challenging stop of his Middle Eastern tour, the Gulf countries. Kerry met Monday his Gulf Arab counterparts in Qatar, aiming to ease the concerns of the Sunni-ruled Gulf Arab states who feared the increasing influence of Shiite Iran in the region.
We affirm the position of the GCC countries to spare the Gulf region any dangers and threats from nuclear weapons, with the recognition of the right of the nations of the region to use nuclear technology for peaceful purposes in line with international rules on this issue.
Both Kerry and U.S. President Barack Obama are sparing no effort to broaden support for the deal with Tehran by trying to downplay the anti-American and anti-Israeli ambitions of the Islamic Republic's regime, but a new aspiring writer is not helping them. According to a New York Post report, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has published a new book named Palestine, in which he outlines his argument on why Israel must be wiped out and his method for achieving this. In the 416-page-long book, Khamenei calls Israel a cancerous tumor and an enemy for many reasons. The first, for being an ally of the American great Satan. He said his plan to replace Israel with a state of Palestine would promote the hegemony of Iran while removing the West's hegemony from the Middle East. Someone who is unlikely to enjoy the book but will probably make great use of it is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is stepping up his attempt to foil the Iran deal. On Tuesday, Netanyahu will state his case once again in a live webcast targeting representatives from over 100 Jewish organizations all across North America. One day later, on Wednesday, it will be Obama's turn to make his own argument in favor of his deal when he addresses the American University in Washington, where 50 years ago, John F. Kennedy spoke in an effort to convince the American people that it was possible to prevent nuclear war with the Soviet Union through diplomacy. Both leaders are in a head-to-head battle focusing on influencing members of Congress, which is currently reviewing the deal and has up until the 17th of September to approve or reject the agreement.
We're joined in studio by former Deputy Foreign Minister and former Ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Dani Ayalon. Good morning.
Good morning,
to you.
Yael.
Also with us in studio, J Street Israel Director Yael Patir. Yael, good morning to you. We're going to go first straight to Washington, D.C., where I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalem is standing by. Tal, this battle in the Congress has clearly stepped up, I don't want to say stepped up, is in the midst of, the turmoil, so to speak. What is the president, what are the people, trying to sell this deal facing when it comes to the two big lobbies battling for and against this deal, which can come down to the GOP and the Democrats, but also the Jewish lobbies that are assisting both sides in this battle?
Well, first of all, the battle is stepping up, and we might say it's even a blitz here in Washington this week because it's the last week before the senators go back for recess, and that will probably be the opening mark for another stage in this battle when the two groups that you mentioned, both J Street and AIPAC and other lobbying groups that have been established especially for this cause, pro and again to promote and to oppose the deal, will be pressuring the lawmakers actually while they're at their hometown. But at this moment, the effort is focusing, yes, on the Jewish constituents and on a group of Jewish lawmakers or Democrat lawmakers who have Jewish constituents. So this is why the battle is focusing, yes, on the hearts and minds of the Jewish voters, but not so much. I might say that the battle is not led necessarily by J Street and AIPAC. It is much more clear that the White House itself and the Israeli Prime Minister and the GOP are the ones leading the battle. We do see the White House itself, the administration officials, in an all-out effort to try and convince in the merits of the deal. And we're not talking only about President Obama. We're talking also about members of the National Security Council, about Wendy Sherman, the chief negotiator, who have all been engaged in a very, very impressive, I might say, extensive outreach to the Jewish community to try and convince them on the deal.
On the deal. Tal, you are staying with us. I want to just turn to the guests in studio for a second. Ambassador Ayalon, because you have been at the front stage, so to speak, of battles as such. Do you believe that the Israeli administration positioning itself as the spearhead, so to speak, of the battle against the Iran deal, but in the United States turf, is something that can work in Congress, and would that be the right way to go?
Yael, the short answer is no. I mean, certainly what we see is an Herculean effort, both by the administration on the one side and the Republican Party on the other side. By the way, we see all these public opinion polls, and the results are in favor of those who make them. So you really don't get a good picture. But we have had a long experience whereby you can never go against a sitting president. And I think this is a mistake. I don't think that Israel should be caught in the crossfire. And hopefully, we will not have any ramification from that, because...
But you yourself, for example, believe that this is not a very good deal. I mean, if I'm simplifying
Absolutely. It's a bad deal.
Then what should Israel do in that respect? If you were in the so-called PR battle right now, what could Israel do in terms of fighting that deal, so to speak?
Two things, Yael. One is, of course, working on a package deal of compensation whereby Israel retains both its qualitative edge against any coalition, certainly against Iran, and upgrading our defense and deterrent capabilities. This is one thing. The second, not less important, is to work a roadmap, a contingency plan with the administration. What if? Because the Iranians are bound to try and cheat, to try and extend the envelope. And they will not do it just in a very big way. They will do it, in an incremental way. And the first violation should be met with very, very tough opposition. This is what we should work with the Americans on.
In that respect, though, Yael Petir, and I'm turning to you and putting you in the spot as somebody who represents the director of J Street, you would say something entirely different, because there seems to be also a divide within the Jewish community, the Jewish diaspora community, when it comes to this deal. And there's a concerted effort to try and show that there is a Jewish lobby saying that this is a good deal.
Right.
Doesn't that divide the Jewish population both in the States and at home? And what would be the argument of why this is a good deal?
First of all, there is a division, but polls show that there is a majority within the American Jewish constituency in support of the deal, and that's been across a number of polls. And the idea is to look at the alternatives, right? I mean, maybe this deal is not perfect, and it definitely is not perfect, and there are a number of holes within the deal, but it's, according to our opinion, the best alternative out there. The best alternative to solve the issue of Iran's nuclear weapon through diplomacy and not through means of war, which are something that we are against and would be very detrimental to the security of Israel, for sure, the region, as well as the U.S. There is, I think, a minority within the Jewish community that thinks that this is a deal that shouldn't be accepted and that are supporting lobby efforts against it. There are Jewish American organizations are also caught in the fire of needing to choose between their
two sides.
Exactly, to choose sides. And it's a very, very dangerous situation to be at. And I think the Prime Minister... because American Jewry have always been challenged by their loyalty to their homeland, to their loyalty to their country, where they are citizens, and I think that both AIPAC and the Israeli government throughout the years has managed very well to create as little
friction,
as possible, so there won't be this need to choose and to be accused of not being loyal to your country.
Right.
And I think this is the problem, and I think that the Israeli Prime Minister, I don't know to what extent he's taking that into consideration, the effect that his campaign, especially whether it will be successful, which I don't think it will be, because I think the president's veto will prevail. But if he is successful, the repercussions for Israel, for the U.S., and for the Jewish community will be detrimental.
Detrimental, and that said, when it comes to that battle right now, as described here, Tal Shalev, you are in D.C. actually meeting so many when it comes to the high power levels in the administration, being talked to when it comes to this deal. In terms of meetings you had yesterday, because it feels to me a little bit also as if, a lot of Israeli journalists, diplomatic journalists such as yourself, are there to be convinced in some ways. And you met Munitz yesterday, didn't you?
Well, yes, and if I could just refer to Yael's remarks from just a short while ago, I don't think it's only the Israeli Prime Minister who's here investing and might be the one who is sharing responsibility for this very intensive battle that will be tearing up the Jewish community. The White House itself is exerting so much pressure on the Israeli community. And yes, our visit here, the delegation of Israeli diplomatic correspondents who have been meeting with White House officials and with administration officials is part of this effort. I do think that both leaders and both administrations are very convinced with the justice of their cause, and both sides are putting a lot of pressure, probably unfair pressure, on the Jewish community. So I wouldn't just put the blame one-sided on only the Israeli Prime Minister in that respect. But yes, you can feel a very, very, very intense effort. We did meet with the Energy Secretary Moniz, who tried to emphasize how much this deal doesn't change who the American friends are in the region, and that that Israel is still the U.S. Strongest ally. But you also do feel that the administration is already preparing to move forward and to start to discuss, as Mr. Ayalon mentioned, further cooperation to try and discuss the day after. And in that respect, the Israeli Prime Minister at this point hasn't been willing to do so.
Hasn't been willing to do so. And that's my question to you, Ambassador Ayalon. If the Israeli Prime Minister, what is Netanyahu waiting for? Because it seems as if he's waiting for either Congress for that vote, and then he will sit down and accept the presents that come along with the so-called deal, a case in point, compensation packages, whatnot.
Absolutely, Yael, and the writing is on the wall. This is why it's not understandable. And the assertion of the Prime Minister is that if he started negotiation now on a package deal, that is in effect tantamount to accepting the deal, which I don't think is the case. You know, politics, diplomacy is the art of the possible, and you can really nuance and you can really decouple these two issues. But I think this is a way to, one, get the pushback against the administration.
Right.
And secondly, also to galvanize support by the Jewish community. By
the Jewish community. Quickly, Yael, to you, just because you mentioned it before, is the Jewish community in the diaspora completely split in the middle in a way, putting aside the Americans and the deal for a second right now, is it split in the middle in a way that we're losing kind of, you know, the homogenic Jewish diaspora? Is that what's happening with this, you know, deal and battle?
I'm not sure what you mean by homogenic Jewish diaspora, because the community is definitely very, you know,
very, very diverse. But when
diverse.
It comes to the agenda and the one voice, so to speak,
I think, you know, the role of J Street was to say that not all pro-Israel activism or pro-Israel policy is the same, and that there are different voices. J Street is representing a big constituency within the Jewish community. And yes, I mean, there are different voices, and it's good for them to be represented.
Pluralism, as long as nobody kills each other. I think that's the thing that we should aim for all the time. Tal Shalev in D.C., thank you for being with us. Same to my esteemed colleagues in studio. When we get back, sports, a scandal. Stay with us. First, the news. Good morning, I-24 News on this August. Thank you, Ruthie Sinai, for being here this morning, saving me as you do every single day.
Yeah.
Mommy, I know. For the news you missed while scanning the headlines, I just want to make sure that you understand that it's Ruthie and me, but also two other men in studio. For the next segment.
The weaker sex.
The weaker sex, I know. This will be, we'll keep the audience in suspense. Mm-hmm. We're going to start with news you missed while scanning the headlines. Yes.
Right. Okay, so for those of you who don't remember, in the 1970s and 80s, there was a rabbi called Meir Kahane.
Oh, yes.
Who was a real extremist, didn't like Arabs very much. He founded a movement called Kach. The movement was eventually outlawed. He himself was assassinated in New York. And turns out that he's got somebody who's taken up his case.
Role.
Yes, his grandson, Meir Ettinger, who is the number one wanted list of the Shin Bet, Israel's Shin Bet. And here we can see a story on the Jerusalem Post. He was arrested yesterday, being arraigned this morning on suspicion of planning terrorist attacks against Palestinians and Arabs. He is known to security forces. He's been a big troublemaker. He's He's been in jail before.
And I think it's coming on the heels of these. Amir Oren of Haaretz yesterday was here, said there's a big gag order on this whole investigation when it comes to the burning of the Palestinian family house, exactly, and the 18-month-old baby. I cannot stress enough how horrific this crime is. Over the course of the weekend in Israel, but there's this network supposedly.
He is a member of a network, undoubtedly.
Right.
A group of them. They're what's called, hilltop youth. These are young anarchists. They don't believe in the state.
Price tag. I don't know if they're all interlaced.
They are totally interlaced. They live in these outposts, most of them illegal. They do a bit of farming, a bit of that and the other, but basically they believe in the Messiah, will bring redemption. This fellow who was arrested had a blog, made very clear he doesn't believe in the state, he doesn't believe in the courts. He's basically waiting for the Messiah, and in order for the Messiah to come, he has to kill or get rid of as many Arabs.
It's a terrifying narrative. It's going to be interesting to see how this investigation comes along and what will be given out, I think, to the press or maybe the Israeli media, what will be allowed to be eventually reported. Yes. Moving along.
Okay. Another type of storm. We go now to Amman, Jordan.
Yes.
There was an incredible snowstorm.
Snowstorm. We wish.
Windstorm. We wish. Yes. Basically, as you can see, we have the story from Ynet. Massive sandstorm swallows Amman. It does look like it. And the flights, interestingly enough.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that looks like a sci-fi film.
It does. It looks like the end of the world.
Is that coming our way?
No.
Okay.
It's stopped somewhere on the way. Although we should explain to our viewers that it's not very far at all. It's less than an hour's flight. And flights were diverted yesterday from Jordan to Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. Yeah.
Now, this is of biblical nature.
Totally.
This looks like God is upset.
Yeah. And we can't hear it, but there's also a siren in the background.
Yes,
like a tornado.
I'm hearing the sirens.
Like
and
tornadoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. You guarantee this is not coming our way.
Well, as much as one can guarantee anything.
Yes. This is very much, this is like the Middle East, the hand of God has landed upon us. That's a sandstorm, folks.
We need to explain to folks, of course, that it's a desert there and so on.
No, it is a desert, and currently we are not seeing a very big, cloud behind us.
No.
Fortunately. Fortunately for us. Okay, yes.
Okay, we go now to Syria next door. Where a MiG-21, a sort of
well-known Russian
fighter jet crashed into a very crowded market yesterday in Syria. On top of all the problems there with the civil war, they've had this probably terrible maintenance problems there with the army's weaponry and so on. Crashed, more than 30 dead, lots of wounded. The 2 pilots, of course, dead.
Yes.
Regime
warplane.
Another
MiG-21 clearly of the Assad persuasion. That said, it's really, there's a loss of words at what else can go tragically wrong in Syria.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Greece. We cross the Mediterranean and we go to Greece. Stock market reopens yesterday after 5 weeks of being closed.
Hallelujah.
Bloodbath. 23% drop in stocks yesterday. It finally ended. The day ended with 16% down. Stock exchange was down. It was expected, but still, people lost a lot of money, especially banks. Lost a lot of money, and if this doesn't kind of even out pretty soon,
What are they looking at?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what else can go wrong in that country, but
But it is the cradle of civilization.
Yeah, you're going to have to go there with suitcases full of money. Okay, now we're going to some fun news.
Thank you.
Remember the Saudi king who went to the French Riviera for a vacation?
Yes, I think.
So he had to close off this whole beach area for himself because he doesn't.
I do that all the time.
He doesn't hobnob with the common people. And the locals.
Is that a friend of his at the top of the front? We don't know.
No. This is after they kicked him out. So basically, the French in this part of the world were sick and tired of all the security and the beach being closed, and they said, "Go home. You have plenty of beaches in Saudi Arabia. You don't need ours." And he finally up and left with his retinue and returned the beach to the nudists and nature and so on.
Okay.
And more you could say it's linked and maybe not linked, but authorities in China.
Yes.
Look.
Viagra added to Chinese.
Okay, so...
Wait, stop.
Authorities...
There are some people who would say that this is a celebration.
Well, I'm not sure how healthy this is.
Probably not. Probably
and
not.
When you say bottoms up, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so here's the deal. They police confiscated some 5,000 bottles of some local alcohol in northwest China.
That was infused with Viagra?
It was laced with Viagra, yes, and arrested the...
It's almost like the female answer to roofies. In some ways.
True, but...
Michael here is having fun.
I mean,
Michael's thinking, where can I get me some of that?
Can you imagine the guys who had, a sip of this thing and are walking around with like a
permanent... I would want to be in that bar, I have to say, just to see that. We're scaring our guests.
Yeah.
Yes, Ruthie Sinai. I want to thank you for this very...
Was that Ruthie? Ruthie. Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
Good morning to you, too. Ruthie Sinai with us for the news you missed while scanning the headlines, and it's very important news as we move along. Viagra and alcohol are not the latest scandal we're going to talk to you about. No. The latest scandal to plague the world of sports is our next item. More than 800 Olympic and World Championship endurance athletes over recent years had been given blood samples that were highly suggestive of doping. And we're quoting now, or at least abnormal, quote unquote. This, according to the British Sunday Times newspaper and German broadcaster ARD, who obtained access to leaked results of over 12,000 blood tests provided by more than 5,000 athletes between 2001 and 2012. The test results revealed that 1/3 of medalists, that would be approximately 146 athletes, including 55 gold medal winners out of them, had recorded suspicious tests. Russia seems to be the champ, with 80% of its medals allegedly won by athletes under suspicion. Now, the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, W-A-D-A, which is already holding a separate inquiry into other doping charges, said it was very concerned by the scale of these allegations. We're joined in studio by former chairman of the Israel National Anti-Doping Organization, Dr. Jack Asherov. Good morning to you. Morning. Thank you for being with us. I'm glad you didn't flee the studio thus far. And, of course, also by I-24 News sports correspondent Michael Friedman. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I want to have a listen to some of the reactions to these latest allegations, which really cast a very sad light over the sports world, and then break it down.
These are wild allegations, wide allegations, and we'll have to check them out. And we'll have that done by the Commission as quickly as possible. Very surprised at the numbers that seem to come from the leak from the IAAF. I'm equally sure that they will want to look very closely at this to see if they can determine the source.
And we have full confidence in our partners at WADA to oversee that case. These allegations at the moment are based on partial evidence, require detailed examination, and we're sure that the Commission will address them. But it's up to the WADA Commission at this stage to gather the evidence and look into the cases, and we have full confidence in them to do that.
If there should be cases involving results at Olympic Games, the IOC will act with zero tolerance with our usual policy. But at this time, we have nothing more than allegations, and we have to respect the presumption of innocence for the.
Michael Friedman, quickly, what are we looking at when it comes to numbers? How many people? What is the what is the deal here?
12,000 blood tests from 5,000 athletes. It's 146, including 55 gold medalists in the Olympics and World Championship Games.
Great.
I mean, as Thomas Bach said, the president of the IOC, there's a zero tolerance after this. They're really going to crack down and figure out where this is coming from. I mean, blood doping, it's insane.
I know. It's insane and it's terrifying. Dr. Asherov, I want to ask you, because I'm a cynical, sarcastic old woman, okay? And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking also, apropos Lance Armstrong and whatnot, can we really believe that the records that we're seeing in Olympic or in athletes these days are even doable without drugs? Are any of them really not taking drugs?
First, we have to decide that innocent is innocent, and he's innocent otherwise
until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one has proven guilty those tests that were found now, so we have to wait.
Right.
zero tolerance is always the words we are talking about. Not always we can do it, but zero tolerance. We have a very big problem in Israel and all over the world because we are making tests and not enough. We are not doing tests enough because the budget is small. Every test in Israel costs about 1,500 shekels, which is enormous amount. So just imagine how many can we test and how many WADA can test through the world. The laboratories not always can find the material in the blood of the athletes because the athletes are always some years before the investigators. So it's very difficult.
But if we're looking at such numbers, okay, at such high numbers of 146 athletes...
Suspicion.
Okay, but this seems to be a concerted effort. 2001, what are the years? 2001 to 2012. How many Olympics are we looking at that span of time? Approximately
3, 4.
3, 4 Olympics. But clearly, this seems to be a pattern. Not just, and I'm asking if it's not just the money for tests and it's not just Israel. You know, granted, we are sitting here, but let's be honest, not many gold medalists come out of Israel.
Not yet.
Not yet, exactly. But, you know, in that respect. But when you're looking at the sporting world and they're saying zero tolerance, this seems to be like athletes these days do not reach gold medals unless they are taking drugs.
And athletes are also finding new ways. I mean, this is something that's hard to detect because they're using their own blood and they're pumping it before they perform. And they don't have the technology necessarily to know what's being done. So it's a challenge. It's something that the authorities and the sporting world hates to see, but it's continuously...
It's continuously infiltrating it. It's continuously in it. Yeah.
But we are doing anything. We make the passport, the athlete passport, so we can prove or not prove any test we are doing. And still, the cheaters are much more clever than us in this time. So they are exceeded us for 2-3 years. And in 2-3 years, we'll be able to see and detect what we have to detect now, and we can't.
So wait, in 2-3 years, you can make a test and then just realize what's in it in 2 to 3 years?
No, what was
in it in the past.
Yeah.
So that's basically what's happening with this case.
We're backwards. We're seeing it afterwards, and then fixing what the tests
whatever
are.
can be done. What does that mean? I'm just wondering if this comes out. I mean, the gold medalists. Okay, what it was like 55 gold medalists. Are those medals taken away from them if you find out? Something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of the gold medalists, anyone who is found guilty, will lose their medals. And this is something we've seen. Marion Jones, 5-time medalist, 2000 games.
Right.
She admitted to taking banned substances. Hers was taken away.
Right.
Tyson Gay's drug bans. He was the 4x100 relay runner. So this is, we saw it with Lance Armstrong. All of the sporting world is taking a crackdown on it. And if you're suspected, obviously you have to be proven guilty of it. And once they are, they're going to be banned.
They're going to be banned outside. No, to me, it's just sad that this is what it means. Really quickly, Dr. Ashraf, why not? I'm sorry, I'm really asking this. Why not legalize certain drugs for athletes?
Because we have a problem. One, it's not good for the health of the athletes. Secondly, who will get the medal? The chemist or the athlete? And afterwards, most of those who are giving money to the sport will go out of the field.
Will go out of the sport because it loses its so-called pristine nature, which is put into question.
Just see what happened to Armstrong. Nobody
listen, that was one of my
example.
But no, the biggest example in the very, very sad situation. And I think for all of his fans over the years, I want to thank you both for being here to this. As we said, this is under investigation, but really shedding a sad light over the sporting world. When we get back, something entirely different. We're going to take you to the Sea of Galilee. Archaeologists unearth Mary Magdalene's origins. That's coming up. First, the news. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is still Tuesday, August 4th, even though my prompter says it's Monday, August 3rd. But it's still
Are you sure?
I think I'm positive. I sort of caught myself there in the middle because I could have had one of those Anchorman moments.
Yes.
Stay classy, San Diego.
A different name, yeah.
A different, but that kind of stuff. That would be Shachar Pelin. The amazing Jaffa Port. It's your last time in my studio this morning.
True. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to cry, but I'm not starting with you.
Okay.
Yes. That said, here we go. It's still the morning edition. It's still I-24 News. Jaffa Port is still lovely, and we're going to talk about religion. Our next topic, the Sea of Galilee. In northern Israel is one of the holiest places in the world for Christians. It's where Jesus performed many of his most celebrated miracles and where crowds gathered to listen to him preach. In that area lay the ancient town of Magdala, the birthplace of, naturally, Mary Magdalene. Fast forward 2 millennia, a few years ago, Father Juan Solana of the Legion of Christ purchased some land near Migdal, a modern town adjacent to the ancient Magdala, hoping to turn it into a resting place for pilgrims. However, it quickly turned out to be something quite different than originally intended. So, joining us in studio to see what really it turned out into is Melanie Lidman. Hello. From the Global Sisters Report. But before we break this down, let's take a look at what I was talking about right now. Correspondent Mandy Kogosowski went out to the holy area of the Sea of Galilee and came back with this report.
The biblical town of Magdala, by the calm blue waters of the Sea of Galilee, is considered the birthplace of Mary Magdalene, one of Christianity's most enigmatic and fascinating characters. 2,000 years after she walked this area, Father Juan Solana envisioned Magdala becoming a resting place for pilgrims. He bought some land, and then serendipity intervened.
We bought this land some years ago in 2006 with the intention of building a guest house for visitors, for tourists. And on the process of the preparation of the land, we came across all of this archaeology. At the beginning, I thought that it was disturbing for our project, but indeed it was an enrichment, a big enrichment.
This big enrichment turned out to be the northern tip of the ancient Jewish town of Magdala from the 1st century AD, complete with streets, a market, and most exciting, a synagogue, one of the oldest ever discovered, preserved in its entire glory that included frescoes, mosaics, and an elaborate stage on which the Torah scrolls were placed. Additional excavations, currently still underway, revealed homes and personal artifacts, as well as 3 mikvehs, traditional Jewish ritual baths, a discovery that shed some light on the town's inhabitants.
The most pure mikveh is the Kinneret, or the Galilee, the Sea of Galilee. The people who live around the Galilee make the immersion in the Sea of Galilee, but you have 3 mikvehs. It's meaning that you have here very important people, rich people.
Behind the archaeological site lies the newly constructed worship center. The mosaic on its floor is a replica of the one found in the excavated synagogue, and its main area pays tribute to those who too often are left behind.
In this area, which is the women's atrium, we wanted to honor all women of faith from ancient times, from the Hebrew scriptures, for the Christian scriptures, and even nowadays, my mom and all women of faith.
Mary Magdalene herself receives a special honor with a detailed mosaic, which depicts Jesus curing her from the 7 demons that had possessed her. Next for Magdala, a hotel, a restaurant, and a women's center, all in accordance with Father Juan's vision.
We define Magdala as the crossroads of Jewish and Christian history. So it's so important for Jewish, so important for Christian people. We really would like to have a meeting place, a place where everybody is welcome, where everybody is respected, where we can meet together, study our history, understand, deepen dialogue.
And what will the future reveal about the area's most famous resident?
I don't know if in the future we found something more specific or more evidence about Mary Magdalene. It's possible to connect the sources, the Gospels, and the archaeological evidence, but we don't have the evidence, the clear evidence about the Mary Magdalene yet.
Evidence always hard when it comes to religion. Melanie, I want to ask you, when it comes to this location, near the Sea of Galilee, what is the significance of, first of all, finding all these, what they found and the center that is being built there?
Well, I was at the dedication of the Magdala Center last June, and it's kind of a funny story. When they built this, they wanted to just have basically a hotel for Catholic groups.
For pilgrims.
And when you do construction in Israel, you're required to do an archaeological check to make sure that you're not building on top of any ancient ruins. So they did an archaeological check, and then they discovered ancient ruins. And Father Juan Solana was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be so expensive. And then it turned out that there were all of these connections to the to the town of Mary Madgdalene. I think what's most interesting at that site is the synagogue that they were talking about, that they have this kind of intact synagogue where they think that this is one of the places that Jesus preached to the masses.
No, which is, groundbreaking and amazing. When you look at, historical evidence as such, and I'm going to touch specifically on Mary Magdalene, how important is she, though, to Catholic religion, to Christianity, not Catholic, to Christianity?
Well, she's certainly a central figure for women, and I think that she has a very complicated history. Many people, the whole her backstory that the church has created as of her being a prostitute is a very difficult story, and also being saved by Jesus. But she's certainly one of the central women characters in Christianity.
In Christianity, because what I know of Christianity, and I'm speaking as, of course, for the sake of full disclosure, being a Jew, but there are almost two roles of women. There's the prostitute, Mary Magdalene, and then there's the Virgin Mother, Mother Mary. And as if we have nothing in between, kind of, between those two characters. But when it comes to, finding, let's go back just to the center itself. When it comes to finding, who does that belong to at the end of the day? And, when it comes to finding such archaeological things, does the church then react to it? Does the church then react to these archaeological findings? Does it put a dent into any kind of, practice or whatnot?
Well, this project is a project from the Legionnaires of Christ, which is a congregation of priests within the church. They're considered basically the fundraisers for the church. In the U.S., they're facing a lot of legal issues right now because they have kind of unscrupulous ways of getting money. Such as they were just two court cases in Rhode Island where they had approached elderly, frail people and convinced them to change their wills to donate their inheritance to the Legionnaires of Christ. One was for approximately $1 million.
Is a mild understatement. Yeah, okay.
It's unclear because they were also offering spiritual help at this time in their life when they're kind of frail and vulnerable. So it's unclear. There was one case for about $30 million. And it was found that the niece who was bringing the court case didn't actually have legal standing to do so because she wanted to have her aunt's money go to other Catholic charities, not the Legionnaires of Christ. Legionnaires of Christ has some a difficult backstory. Also, their founder was a pedophile who had 6 children out of wedlock. He had 3 common law wives, so it's a difficult story.
Yes.
So the Legionnaires of Christ, they're first of all, it's a little bit confusing how they have money to build a $30 million hotel and worship center on the Seas of Galilee when they're having so many legal issues and so many financial issues in the U.S. They have a fire. They're just selling off all their property in the U.S. to kind of raise money for their legal fees and their financial difficulties. So it is a little bit confusing how they have so much money to build in Israel. That being said, when I spoke to Father Juan Solana, he said that the Legionnaires of Christ is really using this center as a way to turn over a new leaf.
They make good to try and...
That's the story that they're telling the public. The Legionnaires of Christ has a lot of power here in Israel. They also are the people that run the Notre Dame Center, which is the Pope's residence when he's here in Israel. And the Legionnaires of Christ are just a very powerful congregation because they raise so much money through various ways.
In any event, I mean, it does look like a beautiful center that is about to, basically, well, a beautiful center in the Sea of Galilee, attracting a lot of pilgrims.
And it's certainly important because there are not enough resources for Christian pilgrims in the Sea of Galilee. This is certainly
it's not one of the main
that's needed, and that's part of the. There are many reasons for that the tourism industry hasn't invested enough in Christian tourism through the years. They're trying to remedy that now.
Okay. Melanie, thank you. As we move along to the other woman in the studio, our last time.
From Christ to movies.
From Christ to Jaffa Port.
Quite a shift.
Yes, Jaffa Port, please.
So we all know that in recent years there's been a strong emerging film industry here in Israel, but now people from all over the world are actually coming to learn from it, and we're talking about people from the United States, from the UK, Canada, Argentina, Panama, China, really from all over the world. We joined a group of these film students, some are graduates of film students from all over the world, who came to learn from the industry here, and we asked them why.
Let's have a look.
Under the boiling hot Jerusalem sun, a film production is underway. But the sweaty crew isn't giving in to the harsh Israeli weather conditions.
Action!
They are here to watch, practice and learn how things are taking shape in the local cinema industry.
We communicate with image and sound. I mean, like, we have different language, but when we see something, we all understand what we are seeing.
Young and aspiring filmmakers from Argentina, Panama, the United States, France, Croatia and China have landed in Jerusalem. It might sound like the beginning of a joke, but it's actually a new initiative called Jerusalem Film Workshop.
We had a dream to bring film students from all over the world to Israel to make films and to see the place in their own eyes.
But what do people who live near Hollywood and New York, or come from the country of the Lumiere brothers, have to learn from Israel?
I could have gone to New York and done a similar workshop, but like here, there's so much in such little time. You get so much experience in such a diverse place. Like no one would come to Israel, and it's such. And like now I have a story. I have experience. I'm not the usual.
Sitting in class and listening to lectures is very limited for me to get on hands into what's cinema nowadays and what I should be prepared for. So I think this is a great opportunity to get a hand on reality.
When I say cut, it's because don't stop looking at him.
After studying from professional directors, cinematographers and editors, the students were set to create their own features, both documentary and fiction.
The documentaries were screened at the Jerusalem Film Festival, and now they're shooting their fiction films. All in all, they're going to make 10 films.
Here, it's like an actual group project, and we all have our jobs, and we're kind of learning to work with each other.
With extremely small budgets and limited resources, the ability to tell a local yet universal story is what Israeli films are all about. This project hopes to forward the legacy of this small community to the new generation of filmmakers across the world.
Jaffa Port.
Yes, let's be honest, some of them told us that they are here because it's a trip to Israel.
I was about to say,
but others did say that it was a great experience, a hands-on experience, but also how to learn to do things very fast and with very, very limited budgets. As we know, the Israeli industry suffers from low budgets, but extremely good stories, and they are plentiful. When we talked to Gal Greenspan, the producer whom we talked to in the report, he actually gave Ida, the Polish film which won the Best Foreign Film this year, as a great example. Very low budget, but very good story, and eventually it's acknowledged worldwide. And we remember that the Israeli industry in recent years is not only emerging. Last week we heard that Amos Gitai, the Israeli director, and his film Rabin the Last Day is now part of the competition, the official competition of the prestigious Venice Film Festival, alongside 2 more Israeli films. The Hollywood Reporter just announced this week as the Tel Aviv University Film School, one of the best 15 schools outside the United States.
That is quite
all over the world.
Right.
So it's not only, it's really a mentality, a mentality of mentorship here in Israel of how to do films better with the very, very small budgets. And if we're talking how small, most of the local industry is based on state or other public funds, and we're talking about some $20 million annually for the entire industry. $20 million is like a
catering budget. It's the catering budget of a film.
It's a third of a very small film in the United States. But despite that, we see the success here, not only of the industry, by the way, but the audiences actually coming more and more to see films. And we're talking about Israeli films. If we take a look at 2014, then it was a record year. 15 million tickets were sold here, 2 million out of them for Israeli films. And the most viewed film in Israel in 2014 was an Israeli movie, Zero Motivation by Talia Levi, which is a wonderful film, won also the Tribeca Film Festival, so it was also acknowledged abroad. And if we mention Ari Fulman and Chagai Levi and Gidi Raf, there are great creators coming from Israel and now well known across the world, whether it's in television or in film.
No, true, and I think the only thing that's sad to me about this, that great creators succeed very much internationally, but do not get the budgets they need in-house.
It's true.
Yeah.
Once again, we have the public funds here that are trying slowly to grow each year. 80 million shekels, once again, $20 million. But that's definitely not enough. It's not a profitable industry yet in Israel, but yet is the
I think, Israel possibly needs, a local Bollywood or something like that.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, it would make people happier. Shachar Peled, you are an amazing, amazing, amazing journalist. I see great things for you.
Thank you very, very much.
Safe travels. That'll be the last time Shachar Peled is with us, sadly. Melanie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Do stay with us. When we get back, it's the viral spiral that is the web review, and also the natural gas bonanza. What is Israel planning when it comes to natural gas? That was found here. First, though, the news. Good morning, I-24 News on this August 4th, 2015, where it is time to finally understand what this big Israel gas story means. Can't believe I just said that. Do you get it, Amit? I don't get it. Exactly. No. For that, we have Natalie Ehrlich with us in studio, Economy Magazine anchor. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Please, shoot.
All right. Well, a couple of years ago, over 30 trillion cubic feet of gas was found off Israel's coast. Now, this was quite a surprise. First of all, it's the largest discovery of gas in the world in the last decade, and also in Israel, because unlike many of its Arab neighbors that have a lot of oil, Israel does not. And so this was a huge find.
Yeah. No, huge find, and as a natural resource, something that can bring in a lot of money to the region, but specifically to Israel. We have a report. Let's take a look.
The discovery of Tamar and Leviathan fields has brought sweeping change to the natural gas sphere in Israel. The discovery includes over 30 trillion cubic feet, an unprecedented amount of gas for the country. It brought regulation of Israel's energy market into focus and sparked debates about overhauling the tax and royalty laws that have been in place since 1952. And beyond the realms of tax revenue, excess Israeli gas has diplomatic potential. Regional ties could be created out of energy deals. Egypt is facing severe gas shortages, Turkey is looking to diversify its supply, and Cyprus is in need of a partnership. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the small island this week to discuss just that.
We think that by cooperating with each other, we can take it out more easily. We can market it better to the betterment of both our societies.
Despite the prospects of diplomacy in the tense Middle East and the potential for huge state benefits, discussion over Israel's gas industry is proving to be slow. Netanyahu says every option must be considered seriously.
This is something that we are discussing very intensively. There are many possibilities, and we're going to explore each one of them and make a decision, but it's based on cooperation. Energy is the first field.
But progress remains elusive. Just on Tuesday, Netanyahu and Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz canceled a planned cabinet discussion that was supposed to formalize an official Israeli natural gas roadmap. Though Steinitz promised to submit the roadmap to ministers by the end of next week, Parliament recesses for the summer on Wednesday, and it's uncertain when legislators will be able to vote on the issue. In the meantime, Israel remains without an official national export plan, and only time will tell when the bureaucratic deadlock will be resolved.
So, Natalie, just looking at the issue at hand right now, as we're all discussing in the studios, the bureaucratic mess of trying to get this thing started, how much will it, halt any kind of progress when it comes to actually generating revenue for the country and for the people?
Right. Well, I mean, that is the center of basically this debate here, this issue of, is this going to serve the public good or is this going to serve the companies? And so we did have some interesting comments from John Hofmeister. He's the former president of Shell Oil, and he came on our Nat Gas special. Let's take a look.
Let's have a listen.
My impression of what's happening in Israel right now is a movement forward, but without a plan. In other words, I'm not sure that the entire process of thinking through how natural gas can and should be developed, how natural gas should and can be marketed, how the development of the economy overall, the commercial sector, the power sector, the military sector, all the different sectors of the economy I'm not sure there's a plan for the development of this potentially huge natural gas resource off the coast of Israel. And most countries and most companies operate according to a plan. And the fact that this is going back and forth and there's such urgency, it all reeks to me of not having a planful way forward. Israel has a potentially huge natural resource. B, international companies are very experienced at working to their greatest advantage with governments that are inexperienced and are not fully geared up, so to speak, to tackle the magnitude of the situation. And if there is a sense of rush or a sense of panic, then that's clear indication of unreadiness to proceed.
Natalie, yes.
All right. So what John Hofmeister here is saying, the former president of Shell Oil, is that it looks like the government is rushing along with these companies, these major conglomerates, to basically to monetize this nat gas rather than preserve it and keep it as a resource for Israel. There are a lot of factories here. There are 4,000 factories that desperately need nat gas, and only a handful, under 10, are getting any at the moment. So there's a huge demand for this. While there is, on a diplomatic front, a lot of potential to ease a lot of relations between Egypt and Jordan by exporting this gas, Israel really needs this gas for itself.
And that's, you know, that's putting the bureaucratic mess on an even different level. But the story I'm sure you're going to be following for quite a few months with The Economy magazine. Natalie Ehrlich, anchor of The Economy magazine, I-24 News, that airs
today at 7:40 p.m.
At 7:40 p.m. That's why you need to watch it, because you will understand the gas story. This is the time, though, to move to something that I do understand a little bit. That would be Amit Kling, culture editor of Time.
You don't understand me.
I try. Culture editor of Time Out magazine, Tel Aviv. We're so lucky to have him with us here in studio with the viral spiral that is the web review, because Ami Kaufman is on assignment checking out bed and breakfasts in Cyprus. Yes.
Damn him.
Damn him. Entirely. Definitely.
All right. So listen, this is just from overnight, but Senator Chuck Schumer has a surprising ally in his gun control bill.
Let's have a look. Gun control bill. Chuck Schumer has a cousin named Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a video of Amy Schumer speaking in support, right?
Let's have a listen.
Thank you all for coming today. And thank you to my cousin Chuck for inviting me to be a part of today's event. I wanted to take this opportunity to explain how I feel and also support this new push for better, more sensible gun control laws. We're here today to say enough is enough to mass shootings in our schools, our college campuses, our military bases, and even in our movie theaters. These shootings have got to stop. I don't know how else to say it. Maybe the worst part about all this is that there is a common sense way to stop mass shootings. There are many ways. For me, the pain I share with so many other Americans on the issue of gun violence, it was made extremely personal to me on Thursday, July 23rd, when I'm not even going to say his name, when he sat down for my movie, Trainwreck, at the Grand Theater in Lafayette, Louisiana. 2 lives were tragically lost and others injured. And I've thought about these victims each day since the tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Listen. It's just, I'm glad Natalie's here too, because, you know, both she and I share this, you know, half Americanism thing, being American as well. First of all, who knew? Chuck Schumer and Amy Schumer. Who knew?
Anyone who knows their
No.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's
age gap on there. Interesting, right?
Age gap for cousins. Once removed, I was told. I think it's phenomenal that she's taking this on.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous that she's taking it on.
I think this is a part of this ongoing evolution of the comedian, especially in the States, as the public intellectual.
Public intellectuals, voices to be heard.
Yeah, we've had this. I mean, we've had this since the late '90s with Jon Stewart, with Chris Rock, earlier with Pryor and Bill Hicks and Lenny Bruce.
Kind of get lost somewhere in the middle, but it's the resurgence.
Exactly, and then there's resurgence of new comedy. We have
this.
voices
and,
like
you know,
Schumer,
when it comes to gun control, I can hear as many
Yeah.
people talk against it. I'm still baffled at why this is happening in the United States.
Now, I've heard Schumer tackle on many serious issues. You know, women's rights. etc. But this is the most serious I think we have ever heard.
We've heard it, and
the
sadly,
most serious treatment.
The most serious treatment of that, and rightfully so. And sadly, it looks like a battle that they keep losing. The people who ask for more gun control in the States. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Moving on, please.
Moving along to somebody who is definitely not on board with this gun control thing, but this is unrelated. Our friend Chris Christie.
Yes.
Yes, this is okay. So he was asked in an interview, which is, by the way, an insane question to ask in an interview.
Yes.
He was just asked, "Who would you like to punch in the face?"
Yes.
Which is an amazing question.
I mean, don't you think? I think when you sit down in front of Chris Christie, I would ask the same question.
I have interviewed many people. It's never occurred to me before this moment to ask. It has sometimes occurred to me to punch the interviewee in the face, but
not
never,
that. But
never
when you
to
look at
ask.
Chris Christie,
Anyway, and he just goes, "You know who? The National Teachers Union doesn't miss a beat." That is insane.
Okay, did he explain why?
Well, he's anti-union.
He's anti-union,
well
but why just the teachers' union? And teachers, exactly.
It's a strong union. It's a union he personally had some issues with New Jersey, but beyond that, there's something in the there's a miles between being anti-union and going like punch the teachers' unions in their stupid teachery faces.
And I think across the United States, students were cheering.
Of course they were. No, but clearly, Christie is sadly for him trailing. He has like 3% support. And this man was once considered a serious candidate for this nomination.
Was it Sandy? It was Sandy in Jersey.
Yeah, but what they called Bridgegate.
And Bridgegate just did it in. Although I find the GOP's race just ever so amusing.
I really think he's just trying to outdo Trump in headlines right now.
In some ways.
He's just paddling like crazy, trying to get some attention. This is my theory.
I mean, you've heard it first from Mint Clean. Yes.
All right. So over to Japan, where Konami, the huge video game company, has been reportedly treating its staff like prisoners. This is a report from Kotaku. That's the technology and video games blog of Gawker.
Yeah. Why doesn't that not come as a shock to me?
Okay. So here is the story. Essentially, if you're, say, a games developer in Konami, and you do not perform well in your job, you don't get fired. You get moved to a position such as a security guard in Konami, and you're contractually obligated to remain there until your contract runs out.
No.
Yes.
Till the end of time. Oh my God.
And what else?
You can upset your boss, and you can be like an IT whatever.
Guard.
Go guard, or you go make the coffee.
Exactly.
That gives me a great idea. Okay. Just saying.
And also, staff do not have permanent emails. They have random like strings of letters and numbers. They get reshuffled every now and again, every few months. Why is that?
Yeah.
To protect them from corporate headhunters.
That's frightening, and people still sign up.
Yeah,
people still sign up.
I mean, I can understand how for a video game developer working for Konami, it's a dream. It's an amazing company. Right. Product-wise.
It's like the California hotel. You can check in, but you can never leave.
Yeah, exactly. But product-wise, I can understand why it's a wet dream for a game developer to work there. But this...
Yeah, Natalie and I like whatever.
That's insane. No, but that's insane.
Yes. Insane. Yes.
All right. Okay, so we're still on the technology thing. There was a little thing called the Hitchbot. Have you heard about that guy?
Yes, the thing that goes throughout the States?
Yeah, it's a hitchhiking robot.
Right, and he's Canadian.
Yeah, okay, so he was trying to hitchhike to San Francisco. This is not really a robot, I mean...
No, it's a rudimentary little thing.
It looks like a robot.
Exactly, it's that.
Yeah, but in Philadelphia, he has met an untimely end when a man just took a he was just sitting there looking all cute and has a sign on him, I want to go to San Francisco. It's more of a social experiment than a tech experiment.
Yeah, well, right across Canada supposedly in 3 weeks.
Yeah, like the robot-y parts of him, he has a GPS and he can talk a little bit.
A little bit, but then they tried to do the same thing in the States. What happened to him in Philly?
A guy with a baseball bat happened to him.
Yes. I'm sorry. Look at that thing.
I agree because
I would hit it.
I would also.
I would like.
What's up with those stupid boots?
I want to pull them off. Exactly.
Yeah, and also,
I mean, trust Canadians to find that cute.
I also do not trust robots. Okay. I don't think they should be allowed to hitchhike.
No. And there's nothing. I mean, whoever I can see this working in Canada.
It's never a good idea.
Never a good idea. Never. But
he can hitchhike. He will hitchhike us to our doom. As mankind.
As mankind, please. We're so lucky not too many people watch us.
We are.
Yes, just say that
we should have more people listening that we are at the brink of a robotic uprising.
Robotic uprising, and nobody's paying attention. And moving on.
One last thing.
Really?
Yes, but it is I think we're just going to spend the rest of the time
We probably
with
will.
you laughing.
Yes.
So in East Texas, a man
Has to
shot an armadillo. The bullet bounced off and hit him in the face.
Karma.
Yes.
Okay, in
This
Texas,
leathery, naturally armored mammal served poetic justice to a would-be hunter. And here's the best part. Here's the best part.
Please.
Every story about
the
armadillo later concludes with several previous reports on people shooting at armadillos and getting their bullet served right back at them.
In other words, people stop shooting armadillos.
Stop shooting armadillos.
It's like, don't feed the bears.
What do you think Amy Schumer would say about this?
Exactly. Oh, wow. If in her movie, she maybe wants in the movie theaters armadillos at the screen. I never said, I'm connecting the whole thing. Folks, this was all the time that we have. If you are listening and watching this show, stop shooting armadillos. And
the robots are rising.
And the robots are rising. Beware. That's news coming from the Middle East. Of course, do not forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all those social networks where you can find us. And tune in tomorrow morning for another edition to start your day with the Morning Edition I-24 News. Stay with the channel for the news. Thank you.